right, Ducks fans, fire up your motorcycles because unbeaten Oregon is the #1 team in the first rankings released by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And Ducks coach Dan Lenning has Oregon 9-0 for the first time since 2012. And Oregon is the 9th different program to be ranked #1 in the College Football Playoff rankings. So let's take a look at the rest of the rankings brought to you by Allstate. So Ohio State and Georgia take #2 and 3 respectively, while Indiana and BYU are ranked in the top 10 for the first time. And the one difference in the collection of teams between the AP poll and the college football rankings is Missouri replacing Vanderbilt at 24. Now, Missouri notably beat Vandy at home in double OT on September 21st. All right, we got college football insider Pete Thamel joining us now. Now, Pete, what's been the reaction around college football after the first rankings release?
Well, Victoria, from texting around with sources in different league offices and obviously on different campuses yesterday, I would generally say the reaction was pretty muted. There weren't any shocker jaw droppers in this, and most of the folks I talked to have been through this before, right? If you remember the first college football playoff ranking release back in 2014, Mississippi State and Dak Prescott were the #1 team. That just serves as a reminder that a lot can change as these rankings go on. So I think there were some breadcrumbs that this committee left that can hint at what this 12-team playoff could look like, and they left some clues. But I don't think anyone was convicted or irate at anything. There were some, run-of-the-mill grumblings, which you're going to have anytime you rank teams. But I don't feel like there was anybody who was totally bent out of shape from what happened.
Yeah, and I wasn't bent out of shape. I think more than anything, I was excited, Pete, just seeing where Boise State was ranked at number 12. There's been so much conversation about the 5 highest-ranked conference champions being in the playoff, and depending on where some of the group of 5 teams are ranked, may be able to bump into that 12th spot. Well, Boise, regardless of what group or conference they're in, they're already at number 12. To me, that shows a sign of respect. It's not only to the team and to Ashton Jeanty, but to their defense, who's one of the best in sacking the quarterback, and also to their schedule. They played Oregon early in the season, lost by 3 points. That was a tight game. Jeanty ran for almost 200. And so the amount of respect for Boise State is what stood out to me the most.
That's a great one. That's not your normal group of 5 team, by the way, Sam. I know you know that. I was really impressed with where they slotted Indiana. Because I really think that the eye test for Indiana trumped the strength of record, strength of schedule. They're going to get to the Michigan game. They're going to get to the Ohio State game. But it's how Indiana has won. It is how Indiana has played. It is where the strengths of their football team lie, from the inside out, in the offensive front, the defensive front, and at the quarterback position. And when you win all your games by an average margin of 33 points, I think you got to give that a lot of credence. In fact, I would be surprised if they had a different logo on their helmet if they wouldn't have been in the top 5.
The 12-team college football playoff will be made up of 5 highest-ranked conference champions plus the next 7 highest-ranked teams. The 4 highest-ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4 and receive first-round byes, while the 8 teams seeded 5 through 12 will play in the first round, with the teams seeded 5 through 8 hosting home games. From there, the playoff will play out as dictated by the bracket, with no reseeding between rounds until a national champion is crowned on January 20th on ESPN. All right, let's take a look at what the playoffs would look like if they started today. Oregon and Georgia would take the #1 and 2 seed and earned first-round byes, while Boise State ends up as the highest-ranked group of 5 conference and would take the group of 5 conference and face off against the Buckeyes. Now, Lugs, I'm going to ask what your initial reactions were to the rankings since you're on your own little island out there.
Yeah, I am on my own island. Listen, my initial reaction was that the committee really valued the eye test of Indiana. Obviously, the schedule is not something that you would look at for them yet. They've got Michigan and Ohio State on the horizon, but it's how Indiana has played, the dominance in which they have played up front on both sides of the football. They can run the ball. They've had stellar quarterback play, even stellar quarterback play when they lost Curtis Rourke and had to beat Washington, and they handled them. So I think that was revealing to me that the folks in that room are looking at Indiana and they're saying, this is a pretty good football team. And I think if they had a different sticker or decal on their helmet, they might be ranked a little higher than this.
My initial reaction, Lugs, or my first takeaway was the fact that Boise was ranked number 12, just 3 spots away from BYU. The reason that matters to me is that we've talked about the top 5 highest-ranked conference champions being in the playoff, but the top 4 get a bye week. Well, there's a pathway for Boise to get a bye. And so for me to see the respect that the committee has for Boise State, and not just for them, but for the head coach, for their defense. It's not just Ashton Jeanty and his Heisman opportunity. It's this team, the same team that played Oregon not too long ago, that took them down to the wire. So Boise's opportunity not to be let in because they were a lower-ranked Group of 5 champion, but to be ranked number 12, and if things fall their way, they could actually be ranked even higher and get a bye week.
Boise's a fresh face, but my takeaway is the same old faces, which is the dominance of the Big Ten and the SEC in this bracket. And they've got 4 teams each to combine for 8 of the 12 spots. And this is interesting because it's going to help the strength of schedule for the teams that play each other. So you've got Indiana and Ohio State. They have to play. The loser of that game is now going to have a loss to a top 12 team in the committee's eyes, right? Georgia and Tennessee have to play. The loser of that game has a good loss because it's going to be to a top 12 team. So those are the kinds of things that matter, and we know how much losses matter because Ohio State losing at Oregon by 1 point is a big reason they're ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, and those all things are just things that we have to keep thinking about too. And keeping things on the topic of the SEC and the Big Ten dominance, Ohio State and Alabama are the only teams that have been ranked in all 61 editions of the College Football Playoff Top 25. And this is the 58th time Ohio State has been in the top 10, which ties Alabama for the most all time.